Hey, Nick. Welcome to my chow line. I'm Tracy Lingle. This is Nick, but how do you pronounce your last name?
Padlo.
Padlo. Padlo.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I didn't know if it. I didn't know if there was an I in it or not. It's hard to see. It's little in little
yeah,
letters at the bottom of the screen. Sorry. All right. Hey, Nick Padlo. Tracy Lingle here with my chow line. It's nice to meet you. Tell us a little about yourself and your organization.
yeah. So my background, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. Went to school up at West Point. Spent my 20s in the Army, and things were going well. I went to spent some time in Afghanistan and Iraq. Got out, went to business school. Was running a business out of Dallas, and the business was doing really well, but I wasn't. And so, I was struggling with depression, anxiety. I was using alcohol and drugs to cope with it. And so I ended up having to step down from my business and, went to treatment in 2018. I like to say I liked it so much I went twice, but that's not exactly what happened. And so after the second time, really wanted to be able to build a business that could help people who were struggling with some of the same stuff that I was. And so that's why we started Soft Roast. And what we do is we provide addiction and mental health treatment, for people who are struggling. And we do that on an outpatient basis. So our clients are with us anywhere from, 3 to 6 hours a day, picking up tools and skills to be successful in recovery, because I know, for me, I went to rehab, but really where I learned to stay sober and long-term sobriety was when I had to face all those challenges. I had to drive by the liquor store on my way home, and I had to, get into a fight with my girlfriend or whatever and stay sober through it. And so, our goal is to teach people, and a lot of veterans, that come through our program, how do we navigate that stuff when we've got to deal with life, and how do we stay sober and stay healthy? So that's what Soft Roast does.
Nice. All right. Cool. So where are y'all operating out of? Where's your headquarters and all that?
Yeah, so we started in Jacksonville, Florida, and we just opened up a location in Tampa, Florida, and we'll be soon. In October, we're going to launch a virtual program too, so we'll be available to everybody, at least in Florida for now. With the goal of expanding down the line.
Right. Well, I want to get with you then. There's an organization in Georgia, in Athens, Georgia. They do basically, he came across the same problem as finding it very difficult to navigate on his own. He was in AAA and all that stuff. I didn't get all of his story, but it wasn't working for him because he couldn't relate to anybody there. So he developed this program, and it's the Athens Recovery Warriors.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. It's like, it's so hard. We're in this military culture, even if you're only in for a couple of years, I don't even think it matters. You're in for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. It just really becomes a part of who you are. Right. And it becomes your identity. And, all my best friends still come from my time in the Army, and it doesn't matter if I've seen them for 10 years or not. It's like, it's hard to make, there's a song, I forget who it's by, but it says it's hard to make new old friends. And I think that's with so many of our military folks, it's like really hard for us to make connections, to other men specifically. Right. Because we can, for whatever reason, as macho as our culture is, I feel like we're more comfortable talking to our own people, about things we're struggling with.
They could be even complete strangers, but they served in a unit close or adjacent to whatever you served in. And it's easier to open up to them than it is someone you might have spent more time with in your neighborhood or at your church or wherever it is you go. It's easier to open up to somebody who's at least walked a similar path as you as
100%.
far as life, right? Been through basic training, been through the military culture, and the embrace the suck as it is with all the military, the hurry up and wait, because there's not a lot of civilian dudes out there that they might be able to relate to hurry up and wait. You say it and they're like, oh yeah, I know what that means, but they don't really know what it means.
Yeah, for sure. There was a quote at West Point. It was, you had to memorize the definition of leather. And it was, if the fresh skin of an animal is clean and divested of all hair, fat, and other extraneous matter, it's immersed in a dilute solution of tannic acid, a chemical combination ensues. The resulting tissue is impervious to and insoluble in water. Sir, this is leather. I memorized that when I was 18 and never forgot it. But you know, it's this concept that, you know, when we go in, everything's stripped away and we're put in this environment and then we're kind of rebuilt in that environment. And so it becomes the place where we were, you know, not born, but kind of raised, you know? And so it's like such a formative time in our lives that, you know, I think it just makes it a lot easier when we've got some of our own people around.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to my service record is not like crazy or anything like that, but I'm drawn to people who've served just because we all kind of know what it's like, what the culture is like, what, you know, you can, oh, I know what that was probably like. I can imagine what it was like being in a unit that, you know, did certain things or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I watched those guys walk by, or, you know, like I was adjacent to one of those units. Yeah. So,
it's amazing too how it like transcends, you know, service branch. It transcends. I mean, we give the Navy a hard time at Army, right? But like, I live in a Navy town in Jacksonville, and it's all the same, man. It's, you know, and it transcends generation too, right? You can go talk to a guy from Vietnam or from World War II, and it's like you basically went through the same experience, even though it was wildly different. You know, so much of it's the same.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why my chow line, we want to tell veteran stories about food and stuff, because sometimes the guys don't want to talk about their time in service, but they'll reminisce about a meal.
Yeah.
And it's a way to get guys to open up about stuff. And it's, you know, it's the one thing that throughout all of military history, the food has always sucked.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because it's government food. It's always government food.
Yep.
And even at its best.
Even the special nights, you know, we would get surf and turf in Iraq, and it was like, yeah, it was, you know, kind of steak and kind of lobster, but man, it was not real. I mean, you know, I would have really preferred like a Subway sandwich, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. And if you could find your own food and get your own food, that was always better.
Yeah. That's funny. You know, you were talking about stories, and, you know, when I was in Iraq, I was on the MIT team. So I was with the Iraqi army, and, you know, we would get our food, and our cook would just boil everything, you know, so it was like boiled potatoes, boiled meat. It was the same thing every night, you know, just whatever form. He would just throw it in hot water. And so at some point I just got fed up with it. And so I started having my interpreter go out and buy us dinner on the town in Iraq. And man, like for 2 months, that was the best experience. You know, it was like amazing food from Kirkuk. It's like all my favorite, like, you know, stuff. And it was cheap too, you know, it wasn't expensive. And I think the angriest I've ever been at terrorists was the day that they blew up my favorite restaurant. And so that was it. I was like, of all the things you can take from me, like you've taken away my ability to be at home. You know, I can't see my girlfriend. I don't have all the things I love, but I loved this restaurant, and now you've blown it up, and now I'm angry.
Yeah, so that's the governor's now off. I'm coming for you.
The last straw.
We're shooting them first on site.
it's like you're killing all these people, you know, and, you know, obviously that's a reason to be mad, but you almost kind of become, you know, unfortunately desensitized to that, right? But man, when they got my restaurant, I was like, what now? What are you gonna take from me now?
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Yeah, because some of those things, you know, the stories about having the local food in a lot of those locations, you know, sometimes those guys would bring that memory back with them, whether it be Vietnam or whether it's, you know, and that, you know, to be honest, that's how this country got so diverse in our food is, you know, after World War II, all these guys started coming back from the European theater, coming back from Italy, coming back from those places. And it's like, you know, they might have married Italian ladies, or they went back and got a touch of their culture back. And then that's when pizza joints started popping up everywhere. That's when, you know, you started having all these different restaurants besides just diners and regular restaurants. You know, you get all these things started popping up everywhere because, you know, there were certain areas where like those cultures, like hubs, right? You had like a German culture up in Wisconsin or Minnesota or up that area. And then you had in New York, you had Italy, and, you know, Irish stuff up in New York, and then down in Florida, you got the a little bit of Spanish down. That food and that culture, they started bringing those memories. And then so they're like, hey, I want to have that here. How do I have that here? And either they started restaurants or they found somebody who could cook that stuff and they hired them.
Yeah, it's great. I've still been searching for the the Iraqi. It's kind of it's not even really Iraqi food. It's kind of, it was Kirkuk was between like Kurdistan and Iraq. I mean, it's in Iraq, but it's that Kurdish region. And so they make things a little differently. So they made this biryani and they made this dolma. It was like they would take it's kind of like stuffed peppers, but every time I go to a restaurant and they have something that looks like that, I order it. And it still hasn't hit the same, but maybe one day.
Part of it too. I think a lot of that has to do with it's never going to be quite the same as it was when you're there.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
When you're there and after having all that crappy food, and then you have that first taste, then it's like that. It's like a drug addict or an alcoholic. You're chasing that high.
That's so true.
And you can't. It's like it's never quite the same. You might find one close, but it's never quite the same.
Yeah,
so I get that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guy that was in the Iraqi army, and he was supposed to be a soldier, but instead he decided to just run a little convenience store out of his dorm room, out of his barracks room, which is perfectly acceptable in the Iraqi army, not so much here. So instead of being a soldier, he would run this convenience store and he would cook falafel every morning. And so every morning I'd go and it was like 4 for $1 or something, these big falafel sandwiches. So I'd always bring, 10 of those to my Iraqi guys. And, that restaurant made it through the deployment. So I stopped there just about every day. I mean, restaurant, it was his barracks room, right? But it was his restaurant.
Yeah. Well, we have those in the Army. We just have to hide them from everyone. This part of the E4 Mafia does that. The E4 Mafia is what? You need some energy drinks?
Yeah.
I got you.
I got a case of Rippets in the back. Where'd you get those? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Need some Zins? Need some Zins?
So true.
It's the E4 Mafia. You find you a specialist. You like it's like the old cartoons where the guy opens up his jacket. He's like, "You need a watch? Got a watch."
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the old adage of like when you're a lieutenant or whatever. It's like never tell when you're telling somebody to go do something. Hey, I need you to fix this truck, and he's like, "Hey, I can't because of this part." Never say make it happen, because he will make it happen, but you're not going to know where that part came from. And it's probably coming off something else.
Yeah. There's going to be another unit down the road. It's going to be like, why is our vehicle deadlined? We got a mission. And yeah. Oh yeah. That's a very common, it's the fat electrician's got it's a steal. They stealing it. It's this acronym for strategically or I don't know. I have to look it up. I'm screwing it up, but it's
strategic is enough. I get it.
yeah. It's changing it to an alternate location.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a like, where'd you find this? Don't ask.
Yep.
You don't want to know, because then you're liable.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, man, it was good talking to you. So what's the organization's name again?
Sophros Recovery, SOPHROS Recovery. And we've got a couple like big Veterans Day events coming up in Jacksonville and Tampa. So we're going to have like organizations, have people from the VA coming out, different representatives from different departments, DJ, sound bath healers. It should be a lot of fun. So,
Nice.
We're trying to do what we can for vets, but we're excited.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sharing some of that information here. I'm sure my editor is probably going to put up your logo and all that kind of stuff up there.
Cool.
Man, it's awesome. It was awesome talking to you, Nick. I look forward to talking to you more. And I'll send you the link for that other place out of Athens, because I'm sure he'd love to bounce some stuff off of you and get some information from you, because y'all are 2 different states away, 2 different cities away, but still same mission. And might be doing it slightly different, but it's same mission. It's helping vets.
Absolutely.
Helping vets, man. Well, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Nice to meet you.
All right. Nice to meet you.